Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, January the 4th, 2024 Nantucket Conservation Meeting. Happy New Year, everyone. Permit me to confirm that all members who are present can be heard. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mark Beal.
Here.
Tim Brain.
Here.
Seth Engelborg.
Here.
Mike Miserelli.
Here.
Joe Plandowski.
Here.
Linda Williams.
Here.
Thank you. This meeting is being held entirely remotely, so all participants are participating via Zoom. The public may participate via YouTube. There are directions on the town's website as to how to join. If anybody wishes to speak, please raise your hand either in your camera window or virtually and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please state your name and any relationship you might have to the project before speaking. Please keep your devices muted when you're not speaking so that you're not picked up by the recording or creating a distraction. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating via video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. We'll start the meeting with public comment on items not being heard this evening. Any spruce? Burton Balkind. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Goulding. Burton Balkind, known as Spruce. Here as a citizen, I just recently became the president of the Coastal Conservancy. I'm not speaking on their behalf right now. I had sent some emails to some members of the commission and staff about the core project that's at 79 Baxter Road. And I had some questions about that. I didn't know who I should direct them to.
Thank you, Spruce. So I think we'll deal with that in other business when it comes up to enforcement actions, potential enforcement actions.
Okay, that's great. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is in another email, I had asked for the logs of the sand that was removed from the template to move over to 79 Baxter Road. Is that will also be discussed at that time too, or
yes?
Okay, great. Well, I will see you at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And Linda, unless you wish to address something that isn't being addressed this evening.
Just addressing something that he said. He said he sent something.
Excuse me. Let's
no, I'm not just saying I never got it. I'm just saying that a point of order, Mr. Chairman, if he's going to send stuff to some commissioners, it should go through staff and all of the commissioners should get it. I never saw anything from him. And he just mentioned that he sent some to certain members of the commission, Linda, which I find not correct.
Linda, thank you. And duly noted. And let's discuss it and when we discuss the enforcement. So moving on. To public hearings, notice of intent. The following are continued. The Carol W. Dean Revocable Trust, 48 West Myacomet Road, continued until January the 18th. And Manila 5 Gingy Lane continued to January the 18th. We also have a change in the order of the notices of intent, which I believe has been sent out to all members. And so we're going to start with the Sconset Beach Preservation Fund, 41 through 119 Baxter Road. And Dwight, do you wish to make any presentation, or shall we have Jeff discuss this? And I noticed that Steve also put his hand up, so.
Yes, yeah, I defer to Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think we should start with Jeff, so.
Okay, Jeff, you're on.
Sure. Wow, that's kind of fun. So, just wanted to catch everybody up, and for those who haven't participated in a hearing for this project before, I know this is a totally separate project, but we've kind of had past practice here to schedule a separate time. It's a pretty involved application with lots of resource areas and moving parts. So, typically, what we do with projects of this nature and what we've done historically is we've sought out a third-party reviewer for someone to independently evaluate the merits of the application. And in this case, we've also begun a process to look at how we're going to receive legal review for this application, whether it will be through an independent counsel just to weigh in on the merits, and we're working on obtaining that over the holidays. It's a little tougher to get a hold of touch with people and get there, so we're still kind of in that process. But we typically schedule this for separate hearings away from the regular meeting. And I think the intent and the hope of staff tonight was to go ahead and schedule. I know preliminarily and back in December, we talked about the first substantive hearing on this application being the 25th of January, and hopes to get some of those reviews done and underway. We do understand that there'll probably be some significant public comment and submissions. And we're hoping that if the commission agrees that having a separate meeting on the 25th of January for that first hearing, we'd be hopeful that everyone could get written comments in by the 19th of January, which is the Friday before the meeting. We tend to find that last minute comments are comments that come in the day before, or even the day of the hearing, which has happened before, don't have time to be reviewed and digested by everybody. And to try to keep everyone involved and in the same level playing field, we're going to hold pretty firm to those deadlines. We'll also be publishing prior to that meeting on the 25th, kind of an alternative schedule with filing deadline dates for this to be heard. We've had some success in the past too, and just kind of looking for some commission authorization on this to do this, to try to set up a schedule for hearings to be focused on kind of specific issues that have been historically raised in these cases. Obviously, in an application like this, there's going to be lots of questions about construction and sand delivery and maintenance and long-term things and some legal issues, to try to keep it sorted and give people the chance to bring experts or other people with kind of known topics out there. And I think we're happy to develop kind of what we think that schedule would be in advance of that initial presentation of the 25th, for everyone to understand what the schedule will look like going forward as well. And that's kind of where we stand. I think I'm happy to take any questions. I know looking at this group, most of the commissioners that are currently sitting haven't participated in a full notice of intent for a project of this nature before. So I'm happy to take questions on how we've handled this administratively before, but we find that way to be the most successful, and also give the fairest shake to the other 11 applicants that are on the agenda tonight, to not have a 400-hour meeting and get everyone hungry and cranky by the end.
Thank you, Jeff. Steve or Dwight, does that dovetail with the Dewey?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, Jeff's comments are consistent with what the applicant would like. I should note for the record, to the extent it's necessary to extend the 21-day period to get us to the 25th, that the applicant consents to that, just for the record. And then I think that, having Jeff work with the commissioners to establish a schedule over, like 1 to 2 months, to try and get specific topics at specific meetings, so that people can know what's going to be done when, and when they should be submitting certain kinds of comments, I think would really help be a productive way, both for the public and the commission, to proceed, or at least to set a framework for us to work from, with the idea that gives us, 20 days before the first substantive hearing, and 2 weeks now for people to start putting together questions and comments. I guess I would also say that I would segregate those comments and questions as to like legal and design and mitigation, so that we can start answering them in a way that would work with how this is likely to lay out. But obviously whatever people want to do. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. Dwight, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add from what Stephen said.
Thank you. And Jeff?
Sorry, I do have one last thing I was going to add. I wanted to let everyone know, and everyone from the public, we typically get a large amount of information submitted, both from the applicant and the public in this case. So over the next few days, we'll be posting up a separate filing page related to Baxter Road. So I won't post like the normal packet where we do with that. We'll compile it for each meeting and post it on the agendas and minutes page as well, because that's the most common way that we've done it. But we'll also have a separate page that will have all of the submitted filings, all of the schedules, everything that will be up, so people can get that at any time, and hopefully provide people ample opportunity to get that both from a focus webpage as well as from the regular agenda and minutes page, so they don't have to go searching for it if they don't want to. We just want to make sure everyone can get good, clean access to all the information that will be exchanged.
Thank you, Jeff. And Joe, do I see your hand up?
Yes, my question is January 25th the date? Is that set?
Yes, I believe it is. And it's certainly to what Mr. Khan has agreed to extend the 21 days. Does that not work for you?
Works for me.
Good. So I see a hand up from a member of the public. And so, Mr. Wallace, would you like to make a comment? And you're muted, Mr. Wallace. You're muted, Mr. Wallace.
Excuse me. My wife and I own property at 5 and 7 Bayberry Lane, which connects Sankaty Road with Baxter Road. We've owned the property since 1985.
Without interrupting you, Mr. Wallace, is this something that you can't address on January the 25th?
I'll take your advice on that, Mr. Chairman. I simply, my issue is that the historical experience is that the sand deliveries to the bluff roll right down our road in the middle of the summer. So it's like having an M60 tank proving ground in front of our residence. And I want to see if there is a way that we can have the project progress. I've had extensive discussions with Helmut Weimar, a good friend and neighbor of mine, about it, just to ensure that we have a peaceful summer in 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. And so would you please would you please send an email to Mr. Carlson, and we can certainly, if you need the address, to that effect, and we'll certainly do our best to address your concerns. I think everybody is sympathetic to your analogy of having a Sherman tank or whatever it was go right back to the door.
I'm not that old. M60s.
M60. All right. Thank you very much. Unless anybody else and a member of the public has a really pressing urge or need, let's continue this until January the 25th. So,
and is there a set time, Mr. Chairman, for that?
It would be 5 o'clock, Mr. Wallace, I believe, okay. And it'll certainly be publicized well before. But I'm assuming it's going to be 5 o'clock on Thursday, January the 25th.
Well, I very much appreciate being kept in the loop and having the opportunity to participate, even if I was out of line.
Not in the slightest. Thank you, sir. And Deanne, can this wait until the 25th?
I have 2 procedural questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
One is, it's our understanding that once the public hearing is opened, all communications between the applicant and any of the commissioners will be held in the public hearing and not privately. Is that so?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And then the second procedural question is in terms of disclosure, because this project is so vast and involves so many property owners, can the public be assured that if any of the commissioners have either personal or financial interests or conflicts, that they will file disclosures accordingly?
Well, with respect, I think that's a loaded question. I can only answer for myself. I absolutely have no financial or any other form of interest apart from being a commissioner. But I assume all commissioners are aware of their duty to the public.
So if I can, Ian, just to hop in.
Thank you.
You know, the town pushes pretty hard. I'd have to look back at the records for folks on, you know, public employees, number one, and then also for folks on boards and commissions to complete their state required ethics trainings and conflict of interest trainings. And I would say it's, you know, obviously the personal responsibility of any commissioner to disclose any conflict that they have in accordance with that. And if any commissioners have any questions about whether that applies to them, to please feel free to reach out to Will or I, and we can get you in touch with the folks that can help answer that question. And if anyone on the call or commissioner or anyone else that's here would also make everyone aware that the state offers a really great resource called Attorney of the Day through the State Attorney General's office. And if you have any question that you have a conflict in participation or something that you need to disclose, that they're a great resource to answer that question, and we'll provide you that opinion either over the phone or in writing to move forward. And would definitely suggest for anyone that has questions or concerns of that nature to contact them, as they're the legal authority to do so.
Thank you, Jeff. Does that answer your question, Deanne?
It does, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Jeff. We appreciate it.
No problem.
So, Linda?
I was just concerned about something that Deanne said about personal knowledge. I think we all know Jamie Feely. And so that is not a requirement under
Linda,
ethics to be recused.
I'm going to cut you off, Linda. This, I don't think, is relevant, and it was specifically targeted to our fellow commissioners. So I really think we'll just leave it at that. And thank you, Jeff, for filling out the details. And so that is continued until Thursday, January the 25th. Moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Good night, Dwight. Moving on to Lampoon Nominee Trust, 6 Wesco Place, Art Gasparo. Art?
Good night, all. Thank you.
Good night, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before the commission tonight for our third public hearing on this application, which involves the relocation of the barn structure. And we filed a revised plan based on some of the previous discussions where we made the structure parallel to the easterly sideline to move it further away from the wetland. I've shown the resultant offset to that wetland flag A2 at about 22.9 feet. And I believe everything else essentially remains as previously discussed. We did pull the the proposed split rail fencing on the west side. We shortened it up from it had been proposed all the way to the property corner, which was just into the wetland. So we also made a slight revision there to address that concern. So shown in green is the revised location based on the last discussion. We also did a buffer zone analysis that's shown on the site plan on the right-hand side with respect to the structural areas existing and proposed within the 0 to 25 and 25 to 50. The structure as it exists now is entirely within the 50 and would remain within the 50. Within the 25, there would be a 1 square foot increase. However, that's offset by the increased separation distance from 20.5 to 22.9 feet. And I would just also mention that when an order of conditions was issued by the commission back, I believe it was in 04-06, waivers were granted for the structure to be within the 50-foot buffer zone. And so we hope that this proposed layout works for the commission. And we're happy to address questions or concerns if you have them with the application. Also with me is Attorney Glenn Wood, as well as the trustee for Lampoon Nominee Trust, Mr. Zeising.
Thank you, Art. Any questions from commissioners? Yes, Seth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that we also asked for that I didn't see any submission of was an analysis of the types of vehicles that would be using said accessway and whether alternate, material methods were suitable at this site, such as the grass pave or crushed stone or other things. Were you able to look into that at all, Art?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we believe that maintaining the cobble just for the strips would be the best way to accommodate both the construction and future potential vehicles into the site. The grass pave would essentially end up, I think you'd have a wider footprint than it would encompass the entire driveway, as opposed to by using the strips, we'd have regular grass in between the strips instead of having that be the reinforced turf. So I don't see that the overall benefit really would be that it would be better to have the whole thing be reinforced turf, as at a full width of say 10 feet, than to have the two cobble strips, which would be essentially suitable to for the vehicle traffic, and then be compacted underneath it, as opposed to if you're going to have the whole driveway, even if it's grass paved, it's going to support that load. You're still dealing with, I think, more compacted material there. So I think that it's better from a environmental perspective to just have the two narrow strips. We may agree, just it just seems to me to be less impactful to have two strips than to have a full width. Gravel pave is still structural. You're putting the plastic structure in, you're filling that with pea stone underneath it to help that drainage, and as opposed to simply having natural turf.
Thank you. If I may add one thing. So I agree in theory with that, but I think I expressed concerns about, ensuring that the accessway doesn't become a use site for unauthorized vehicles. And one of the suggestions I made was that at the east end of the property, where the border with the land bank property is, that there would be a split rail fence there as well that could be removable. Would the applicant be amenable to that? That would ensure that if authorized access was needed, great, but random people aren't driving their cars or dirt bikes or what have you in there. Thank you.
Again, through you, Mr. Chairman, the use of the Lily Pond property in terms of unauthorized, what is an authorized or unauthorized vehicle, there may be a small parking area in there, whether it's for ADA purposes or the use of the Lily Pond Park is going to be subject to a separate application. So this driveway, I think, remains a driveway that is going to support one vehicle or 100 vehicles. It's not really, I don't think, makes a difference from the protection of the the environmental protected interests. So I don't think that there's necessarily an authorized versus unauthorized control mechanism needed there.
Linda?
Well, that made me think even more, that response from Art. I'm going to be more global. I agree with everything that Seth has said, but I'm still having an issue with the fact that that barn could go the other direction. I'm not sure there's been a formal analysis of moving it on the, I guess, the south side of the easement and getting it away from the 25 completely. It's still inside. I'm still having concerns about it, as well as the usage of that easement. So I'm still troubled by it. I'd like to see it move to the other side. I understand he doesn't want it that close to the house, but it's not a case of what I want and what I don't want. It's what's best for the wetland. So I'm still struggling with that part of it.
Thank you, Linda. Art, any comment before I return to Seth?
No.
Okay, Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to point out that I understand that any activities in the future that pose an alteration potentially to the Lily Pond site would be subject to a different notice of intent. That being said, you know, the 100-foot buffer zone of the wetland on this property extends out way past the property line, and it's within our interests to protect that wetland against any potential adverse impacts. And I think that, you know, excessive vehicle traffic that is going to cause um, erosion, sedimentation, compaction, debris into that wetland is certainly within the purview of this. So efforts to prevent excessive vehicle traffic certainly are warranted by this review of this notice of intent. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Any other comments from commissioners? Mark?
Thank you, Chairman Golding. I share the concerns of the other commissioners regarding this more intense usage of this right-of-way or the easement. I had hoped to make it strictly a walking easement with grass only. I guess that's fallen by the wayside, but that was my wish. A parking lot in Lily Pond, that nice field there, is a separate conversation. It'll be a separate NOI, but building a road to it is, to me, the start of it. And I think we would, the driveway part probably is okay because the owner has to have access and it's been there for a while. But continuing it on, and Seth's suggestion of a split rail fence across that where the roadway ends, or the walking path, which is my preference ends, would be preferable. I'm just not happy with this as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So I happen to be in complete agreement with Linda, Seth, and Mark. And, I beg your pardon. Mike, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Golding. Sorry, I was struggling to find the hand after a couple of weeks. Just one comment on the grass pave. I do agree with. I've installed that before, and it is quite invasive to install. It involves an area about 8 foot wide and excavation down to about 12 to 18 inches. So I'm not. I think it would be disturbing to install the grass pave, and on the other things, I'm in agreement with fellow commissioners.
Thank you, Mike. So, yes, Seth.
Yeah, I would just say quickly, you know, the orders of conditions allow us to put any conditions into place that protect the protected interests and the performance standards of the resource area we're talking about. And so if there are ways to tie the concerns to those performance standards to the use of vehicle traffic on this site, we can do it in orders of condition. And if the applicant doesn't agree with the use that they've received the permit for, then they're within their rights to apply for an amendment to that order of conditions or a new notice of intent to deal with those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Linda?
I don't want to beat a dead horse here if I'm the only one that has that concern, but if we have to move the structure, we can just as easily move it south as we can move it north as far as overall disturbance to the site. So that's just me. I didn't know if I was the only one that had a concern about moving it south as opposed to staying up north.
Thank you, Linda. So, well, I certainly would, since this driveway, for want of a better term, is entirely within 50, I see no reason why we can't condition it for land bank authorized vehicles only and have a split rail fence, as I'm absolutely opposed to a park being there, and feel that they already have adequate parking on the other end. So that's my 2 cents. As to Linda, I would say that you are in the minority of this. I mean, we certainly share your concerns, but I see this as being sort of the lesser of the two evils in some ways. Does any other commissioner wish to address Linda's concerns about moving it to the south? Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say in general, my opinion is that if there is opportunity to move structures onto a site further away from the wetlands, then that is beneficial. So I guess it would depend on a plan being shown, looking at whether if it was moved to the south, it could be moved farther away from the setbacks than the location in the north. You know, from a anecdotal perspective, it seems like there's possibly more area there, but I'm unaware of if there are additional setbacks from the house to the property line or who knows what that are causing that to not be a reality. I know also that there's the discussion with the land bank about where the structure should go, which is honestly outside of our jurisdiction, I believe. But in general, it's our duty to get structures as far away from setbacks as possible to minimize adverse impacts. Thank you.
Yes. So in terms of the actual footprint within the 25 to 50, it's very little difference from what I can gather. But on that note, if we don't have any further comments from commissioners, are there members of the public that would like to speak on this?
Mr. Chairman, James Hagedorn from
yes,
34.
Sir.
We're from 34 West Chester and 3 we're immediately next door, 3 Wesco. I'm very comfortable with the discussion of the commissioners. The whole issue for us has been this issue of parking in the park there, and I think you guys have it right on that, but that is our concern, is the parking and the use of that driveway / road for other uses besides just maintenance and stuff like that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Further comment from
Ian? It's Hunter. Can I comment?
Yes, of course.
Again,
would you give your full name for the minute taker, please?
Hunter and Marcy Ziesing, Lampoon Trust, the owners of 6 Wesco Place. Thank you for all your considerations. This has been a long, arduous process, and I appreciate what you're doing for the environment. It's really in our best interest to move the barn to the north, as we said 2 weeks ago, and hoping that you can accept that the adverse impact is minimal, less or no more than it was before. it's just aesthetically the best thing for us, for the public, and it solves everything with land banks. So I'm hoping you will consider that. Whether or not you ever accept parking is outside of our involvement, but we would love to get this through as is. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Did I hear something? Yes, Art, please.
If there's nothing further, Mr. Chairman, I think we need to continue this for 2 weeks.
Very well. On that note, then continue until, let me see, until the 18th.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Art. All right. That brings us to Creekside Nominee Trust, 156 Orange Street. Mark Ritz.
Good evening, Mark Ritz, representing the applicants at 156 Orange Street. We presented this at the last meeting.
Excuse me, Mark. I'm sorry to interrupt you, and sorry, Mr. Chairman, but just a reminder, I'm recused from this one.
I'd forgotten. Thank you, Mike.
We'd presented this at a previous meeting. The request before you was to construct, or rather install an at-grade therapeutic swim spa at the 156 Orange Street property. The original proposal had the spa rotated 90 degrees lengthwise towards the coastal bank. There were also a number of questions about possible alternate locations, alternative placement of the spa. We've provided a detailed alternatives analysis. We've evaluated pretty much all parts of the property near the house. We're unable to place the spa to the north of the house because of utility easement, and building setbacks. We have a building setback issue on the south side of the house. On the west side of the house, the only area where it could potentially go is a tiered retaining walls that would require rather extensive reconstruction and permitting of, much bigger retaining walls and earthwork. So the option we've decided to present again to the commission is a slightly modified version of what we had previously presented. We have spoken to the manufacturer and reduced the size of the swim spa to the smallest available. The original proposal was 8.5 by 17.5. The current proposal is for an 8 by 14.5 foot spa. We've rotated it roughly north-south and placed it right up against the existing house. It's just north of the covered porch, so it's within the sort of overall building footprint. We've also proposed removing about 100 square feet of existing stone patio just to the north of the proposed spa. The spa will have a footprint of about 116 square feet, and we're proposing to get rid of 100 square feet of stone patio. We've pretty much minimized this thing and gotten it as close to the building as is possible. There is no way to put it on the existing porches at the minimum size that this thing comes in. And if we did that, we would need to basically reconstruct the porches with significant newer foundations and footings to support the weight of the spa. At its closest point, this spa will be about 37 feet from that DEP policy coastal bank. You can see my dashed green line, which runs in a very odd way across the property. And this is really based on that. The top of the bank is based on that DEP slope policy. The actual BVW on site at landward of the marsh is about 64 feet away from the proposed spa, and this bank has been maintained as a lawn area since for multiple decades now. I spoke with Dan Malloy, our civil engineer, and he is confident that the placement of the spa That far from the top of the bank will not impact bank stability by any sort of loading. There's sufficient horizontal separation. We've proposed to use a cover on the spa to keep it covered when not in use, so that there's no interaction with wildlife and no overtopping with rainwater. This does have an autofill feature and will be, you know, basically connected to the house plumbing, so that it's not it doesn't drain down, and it will be covered so that it doesn't overfill with rainwater. With that, I'll be happy to address any additional questions or concerns.
Thank you, Mark. Questions from the commissioners? And seeing none, any questions from members of the public? So, Mark, thank you very much for modifying the design. And would you like to close?
Please.
Good. A motion to close. Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Mark Beal. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Kim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye, with Mike Mazzarelli recused.
Thank you.
That brings us on to Noof and Metz, 35 Nantucket Road, and Mark Ritz up again.
Once again, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 35 Nantucket. We presented this project for a secondary dwelling, pool, and shed at the last meeting. We have an existing structure partially within the 50, which we're proposing to remove, and the original proposal showed a house and a shed that were partially inside the 50. As requested by the commission, we went back and sharpened our pencils and managed to pull all of the structures outside of the 50-foot buffer. Some of them are very close to the 50-foot buffer, but we're proposing everything outside of the 50. We will be able to maintain greater than 2-foot separation to groundwater, and no alterations inside the 50 except removal of existing structure. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions from commissioners? Yes, Mr. Beal.
Thank you, Ian. A question for Mark Ritz. Mark, do you advise your clients that the Conservation Commission does not approve his structures within the 50-foot? No, we just don't. I wonder how they plan.
If I may respond to that,
of course.
we typically do advise our clients that structures inside the 50 are not generally permitted. However, you know, we do know that in past, perhaps not in this iteration of the commission, but when there have been structures present inside the 50, and when efforts are made to reduce, in the past, there has been some ability to reduce structural footprint in the 50. So some of our clients like to make the request and make the attempt, but we do generally advise that new structure inside the 50 is typically frowned upon.
Thank you. All right. Any further questions as to how sharp his pencil is, which I must say, Mark, was very sharp indeed. Any questions from members of the public? Seeing none, Mark Ritz, would you like to close?
Please.
Okay, a motion to close, please. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mike. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye. Thank you, Mark. This takes us on to Nantucket Property Trust, 13 Halloway Lane. Art Casparo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for a proposed set of beach stairs. This is the second hearing. We continued to allow time for natural heritage review, which we have received. They've suggested some conditions related to protected bird species on the beach, which we're of course amenable to. And I don't believe there was any outstanding questions or concerns with the application, but I'd be happy to address them if they were.
Thank you, Art. Any questions from commissioners or members of the public? Seeing none, we have everything we need to close, don't we, Art?
Yes.
And you'd like to close?
Yes, please.
Okay, a motion to close. Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Mike Mazzarelli. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Plandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Art. That brings us on to Great Harbor Yacht Club, 96 Washington Street. Mr. Asadorian, I believe.
Yes, good evening. Leo Asadorian for Great Harbor Yacht Club. We filed a notice of intent basically to update and improve the existing pier and pile system. The notice was for, first of all, for the trav lift. The decking on the trav lift needs to be upgraded. And since the initial trav lift went in on this project back in 2005, 2006, the trav lift was improved. There was a bigger trav lift going in, and I believe the structural issue here is to replace the decking so to be safer. With me on this presentation is Richard Fitzgerald from AGM, who has done some previous work on the island in the boat basin for the type of improvements that we're doing to the steel piles, excuse me, and the green hot piles. And the other issue too as well is that the existing fire protection piping underneath the pier has to be replaced. It's going to be replaced with a high density polyethylene piping, and stainless steel hangers are going to be placed in there. Right now, I've observed that some of those hangers have rusted through, and it just all needs to be replaced. So basically, this is just really a maintenance and upgrade of the existing approved pier.
Thank you, Leo. Questions from commissioners? So, Seth, I believe Linda beat you to the punch, so to speak. I don't know if that's politically correct, but Linda, off you go.
By a nanosecond.
Yes.
Leo, is this the same type of material that was used down at Delafano's? You know, the condos that were down the street next to Francis Street? The same type of plastic, not really plastic, but the same type of stuff that withstands when they redid their bulkheads? Is this the same type of stuff?
No, I think you're talking that we replaced the bulkheads down there with basically a synthetic bulkhead as opposed to a wooden pressure treated bulkhead. The materials that are going to be used were included in the notice, and I believe Richard Fitzgerald from AGM is also on call here on this meeting as well. But he could explain the materials a little bit better since he's used it. But I know he had mentioned to me that they have wrapped and taken care of a lot of the piles in the boat basin with the same material. But I think what you're alluding to, Linda, was the bulkhead material that we used down there at the property next to the beach, Kayak Beach.
Okay, thank you very much. I have noticed what they did down at the boat basin, so it is already used effectively.
Right, correct. Like I say, the the pier that was installed out here and constructed, is steel and green heart piles. And, it's been in place since, well, construction was from May to July of 2009. And that's been a number of years, about what, 14 and a half years. And it does take a beating, especially when you got steel installed inside the ocean. So the materials that they're using is just going to continue the life, keep from having to take the pier up and reinstalling new I-beams and everything else. So it's just a preventive measure to keep what's in place out there for a longer period of time.
Thank you.
I may.
Yes, please, would you identify
me?
yourself for the minute taker, please?
Yes, I'm Richard Fitzgerald. I'm with AGM Marine Contractors.
Thank you.
The pile system we're talking about, yes, we did use over in the boat basin. It's instead of what the yacht club here, and there's steel H piles that support the piers A and B, and instead of sandblasting and then recoating the piles and then installing anodes underneath the water to protect the steel, we're using a less evasive method of wrapping the piles and with a petrolatum tape and then a fiberglass jacket over that. It just is a much easier. Divers do the underwater portions, and the top side in the tidal zone, it'll be people working on floats and things.
Thank you for that elaboration. Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly an intriguing project. I had some questions about the materials. So I see the materials listed in the notice of intent, and all the spec sheets come from the company, but I'm specifically questioning about one thing related to the Nantucket wetlands regulations for land under the ocean. There's a specific performance standard. It's performance standard 4 in those regulations that say construction of commercial piers shall be in compliance with the town of Nantucket zoning bylaws and shall not affect sediment transport and shall not destroy or pollute fisheries and shellfish habitat or nutrient source areas for those resources. Specifically, that shall not destroy or pollute is what I'm wondering about. And having no knowledge of these materials, I know petrolatum is a not a project, is a material that is a fossil fuel material. And I think we need some type of independent assessment about whether these materials contain any potential pollutants, whether they be PFAS, PCBs, et cetera, because we need to make sure that any materials we're putting directly into the land of the ocean aren't causing pollution impacts. So I'm requesting that the applicant provide some type of analysis on these materials and any potential impacts of using the materials. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. And before I go to you, Tim, Mr. Fitzgerald, would you like to reply?
Yeah, the petrolatum is basically petroleum jelly, and there are different varieties of petroleum jelly, and the one I believe that they use on this is called white petroleum jelly, which is a very it doesn't pollute. It's I don't know how to describe it except that it's a very clean material. They use it on babies, things to that effect. So it's a very inactive material, and then the whole thing is wrapped in fiberglass in a fiberglass jacket, so it is not exposed to the seawater. The petrolatum is just to keep the steel from corroding any farther.
Thank you. Seth, does that answer some of your concerns?
No, because there are certainly articles that I could provide to the commission that document petrolatum and petroleum jelly have the potential to be contaminated with PAHs and maybe other things. You know, I'm not a chemist, but I think we need some type of actual chemical assessment or some type of review on these materials before we use them directly in the ocean. Thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, I agree with Seth, and I would be concerned also about, given all the concern about microplastics in the water, what happens to the wrapping when it degrades? And does that become a problem, a pollutant? So I think we should get some other opinions on this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Linda?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Fitzgerald, to sort of bootstrap on their comments, I assume that this wrapping is a fairly new, and so you don't know necessarily the longevity of whether the wrapping or the petrolatum product is at any point the petrolatum product in contact with the water, or is it completely isolated from ever coming in contact with the water?
Initially, it's when they put it on, it is in contact with the water, but then they put the fiberglass over it to isolate it from the water. If the fiberglass is damaged, it's easy enough to put another layer of fiberglass on it. So just to keep the structure intact. As we said, we did use it in the boat basin to cover a lot of the timber piles that support the cottages over there using the same materials. The petrolatum is also used on the timber to protect the timber from marine bore activity.
That was a relatively new process over at when they're redoing the wharves over there. Isn't that a new process even at the boat basin?
Yeah, I'm not sure how long it's been around, but it's been around for a while and used in other marine structures to repair them instead of, as I said, to sandblast the existing steel and then recoat it.
If I may,
it's probably going to cause more damage.
in trying to do research on it, where I couldn't find basically every Google entry I put in came up with sort of the company's sheets and nothing else. But I believe it's been around for at least 17 years. I sort of share both Seth and Tim's concern. Also, I was curious about what is it on page 24, the mudline seal, whether you were going down below the mudline. So I think there are a number of questions that it would be a help if they could be answered, if you could continue for 2 weeks to provide some more information for commissioners. I don't know if Leo, do you?
Yeah, obviously with the questions that have been proposed, obviously we have some questions to answer. I've also filed with Natural Heritage and the Department of Marine Fisheries and have yet to hear back from them as well. So I don't think we'll be able to close this evening because of that.
Okay.
But Richard and I will pursue these questions and get information back to you as soon as we can.
Great. Thank you very much. So that's continuing until January 18th then.
Correct.
So that brings us on to 14 and 16 Sheep's Pond LLC at 14 and 16 Sheep Pond Road. And Brian Madden, good evening.
Good evening. Thanks so much. Happy New Year, everyone. Brian Madden from LEC Environmental for the record. So the proposed project involves demo raising the existing remaining structure on number 16, which is partially within the 50-foot buffer zone to the top of the coastal bank that is eroding. The top of the coastal bank that's shown on this plan is very recent. The survey took place after the storm on December 18th that took a decent chunk of the bank away. So basically everything is being shifted away as far away as possible from the eroding coastal bank. A new proposed house and pertinences are proposed within the northwesterly portion of number 14. All those structures are outside the 100-foot buffer zone to the coastal bank. And then the footprint of the existing structure and lawn area and driveway are all proposed to be restored. The material, the topsoil, seed bank from the existing footprint will be spread out over the restoration footprint. The septic tank that's just north of the existing structure is proposed to be removed, and the existing leach field is proposed to be abandoned in compliance with Board of Health and Title V requirements. Because a portion of the existing lawn area south of the structure is within the 25-foot buffer zone, we did request a waiver request for that restoration activity. But obviously moving the structure outside the 50-foot and restoring that whole footprint will result in an improvement over existing conditions. And I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
Questions from commissioners? Seeing none. Questions from members of the public? And seeing none. Would you like to close, Brian?
We still are waiting for natural heritage determination. So
okay.
Request a continuance for 2 weeks, please.
All right. That leads us on to Nantucket Islands Land Bank, 40 Western Avenue. Rachel Freeman.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My name is Rachel Freeman, and I'm representing the Nantucket Islands Land Bank tonight on a notice of intent application for a bench installation on our property at 40 Western Ave. This is a coastal dune field that extends down towards the ocean, and we have had a number of requests for a bench in the area that would allow people to sit and enjoy the view. It's a pretty beautiful dune field, and this bench is proposed right next door to the path. The property itself is approximately 8.5 acres. And the bench, as specified, is the same bench that we install throughout the island, and has been installed in similar locations. As you may have noticed in your packet, we have an example of a nearby bench, which was installed also in the beach / dune field. And there we go. Photo number 4, the memorial bench. To give you an example of what the proposed bench would look like, I am happy to answer any questions if the commission has questions, and provide additional information as needed. Thank you for your time tonight.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. Any questions about the ergonomical design, whether it's designed to move people on after 15 minutes, like a McDonald's seat or something like that? And seeing none, any questions from members of the public? I'm sure can't wait to sit on it. So Rachel, would you like to close?
I would, except my understanding is that we're still waiting on natural heritage.
Oh, really?
Yep. And
okay.
Just want to double check that Will has not received anything before.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute, but no, we don't have that HESP yet.
Okay, so I would like to continue if possible until we.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed that you get it in the next 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
All right. That moves us on to, let me see, 21 Sankaty Head Trust, 21 Sankaty Head Road, Brian, and also 20, well, I guess they're separate. So Brian, go ahead.
Thank you. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. Proposed project involves some minor updates between the 50 to 100-foot buffer zone to the coastal bank that is eroding basically about 2 to 3 feet a year per CZM. All proposed work is outside the 50-foot buffer zone. It's all contained within existing lawn landscape conditions. There's a proposed porch that's being added to the east side of the existing dwelling, and then some reconfigurations of the existing patio areas within some fieldstone walls. So everything's pretty tight to the dwelling. There's a proposed entry addition on the west side of the house that's outside the 100-foot buffer zone, but relatively straightforward.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Yes, Seth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if it is an actively eroding bank, then I'm assuming we need to use the expanded structural setback that is in the Nantucket wetlands regulation, the 20 times the annual average erosion rate. So have structures been cited based on that number? And can you provide some analysis of that?
Yeah, so 20 times, I think specifically, let me just verify this because it was varied between the two properties of 2.7 to 2.9 to 3. On this one, it's 2.7 feet per year. So if you multiply that by 20, we're still far in excess of that. That, just gets you over the 50 foot. I can do a quick calc if you bear with me. Yeah, that only gets you to 54. I should know that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Pretty quick use of your fingers there, Brian.
I shouldn't have needed a calculator.
So, all right. So, any further questions? Or questions from members of the public? And I assume Natural Heritage doesn't need to weigh in on this, so you'd like us to close here?
Yeah, no natural heritage on this property.
Okay, good. So, a motion to close from Joe, seconded by Mike by roll call vote. Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. Which moves us on to 23 Sankaty Head Trust, 23 Sankaty Head Road. So, Brian.
Thank you very much. Brian Madden from LEC. This is the property directly to the north. A similar type activity. There's a proposed patio being added to the east side of the existing main dwelling that occurs within the outer 100-foot buffer zone to the coastal bank. There's a proposed septic upgrade with the new existing system outside the 100-foot buffer zone. And then there's a existing garage that's outside the 50-foot buffer zone that is being converted to a gazebo, basically a covered open aired structure with stone patio substrate. So the slab for the existing garage is proposed to be removed, and the structure would comply with that setback for the 20 times the eroding coastal bank. So with that, I'll turn it over to questions, and also just to iterate that all work is within existing lawn landscaped areas as well.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions from commissioners? And seeing none, and no questions from members of the public. So would you like to close, Brian?
Yes, please.
Oh, Mark, do you have a question? No, Mark.
Way ahead of you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Seconded by Joe. Thank you. By roll call vote. Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Plantowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks, Ron. Take care. So that brings us on to amended orders of conditions. And 63 Halbert LLC, 63 Halbert Avenue, Mark Ritz.
Good evening, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 63 Halbert. We recently had an amendment request on the main house on this property. This is for one of the two secondary buildings on the south side near Halbert Ave. The applicant went through HDC and got some requested modifications to the building footprint. So we're basically before you with a slightly revised building footprint. There had been additions and modifications previously approved for the structure. We're just basically squaring off the backside of the building as per the request from HDC. This is going to be a building on a flood compliant foundation. Garage will be on a slab. Everything else will be on a pass-through flood compliant foundation. Minor increase of footprint, but that's about it. I'll be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions? So seeing none, any questions from members of the public? So seeing none, any commissioner like to approve this amended order of conditions? Thank you, Seth. Seconded by Joe. Thank you, Joe. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Plantowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to another amended order of conditions, 32 Halbert Trust, 32 Halbert Avenue. Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm before you tonight to request an amended order of conditions for this residential development project. And the features that are subject to the change are shown in red on the site plan. And that includes a reconfigured shell driveway, a one-story shed, and some a closed loop geothermal system. The work is all proposed within land subject to coastal storm flowage and is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetland that's on the abutting property to the south. We also had included a landscape plan. There's a patio as well that I didn't mention that is also proposed that hadn't been previously approved. So really this is to get approval for the final design. The house is under construction, and we hope that the commission agrees there'd be no adverse impact as a result of these changes.
Thank you, Art. Any comments from commissioners? And Will, could you take that down, please? Thank you. And Seth, I noticed your hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some concerns related to the proposed planting plan. If you wouldn't mind putting that up on the screen, Will. And while he does that, I'll preface this by saying, I understand that this is the land subject to coastal storm flowage only. But if you look at the proposed schedule here, almost all of these are non-native cultivar type plants. And one of them, the sweet autumn clematis, is actually it's on a list to be a candidate for review for invasiveness in Massachusetts. That's uh, a vine that MIPAG, the Massachusetts Invasive Plant Advisory group, I think, group is has indicated that they would like to review for invasiveness. So I would certainly not want to see that planted. I know it is in a lot of other places on Nantucket, but we should be moving towards not using that. And just in general, I think it would be better to have a more native plant schedule. Again, I know it's just the land subject to coastal storm flowage, but within that resource area, we do have the protected interest of wildlife habitat, and native plants provide much better wildlife habitat than non-native invasive plants. So it's within our purview and our duty to look towards native plants. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Art, would you care to respond?
I think if I could, Mr. Chair, we'll hear all comments, maybe from the public, other commissioners, and then I would request a continuance so that I could take this back to the landscape designer. I didn't choose the plants.
I hear what you're saying, and I assume that is the only request for reconsideration. And has anybody chimed in from members of the public, Will? No. So great, Art. Thank you. So
2 weeks, please.
2 weeks continuance until January the 18th.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that leads us on to minor mods. And 4244 Arborway LLC, 9 Arbor Way. And I believe it's the inestimable David Haynes is before us. Hello, David.
Good evening, and I hope you all had wonderful holidays. This is a minor mod request. It's for 9 Arbor Way. It's a whatever 9 Arbor Way, and it's there's an order of conditions for this for demolition and reconstruction of portions of this house. This minor mod is just they reconfigured the one of the foundation and the design of the house. It is over what is existing house now. It is outside of the 50. It meets all the performance standards. And the color, do you have the colored shot, Will? That actually shows it a little bit better. That's in there. That lower one would be good to show. So it's expansion of a little bit of the footprint of the house. All work is over existing lawn. Our work is outside of 50. There are structures that are closer that already encroach inside of the 50 on this property that were approved. It is a tight lot, but we were removing a lot of structure between all the way down inside of the 12, inside of the 25. So it's still an overall improvement. All other work will be the same. Landscaping will be the same. The foundation construction will be the same. So all other aspects are the same. It's just a slightly different configuration in that one area, those 2 areas, one on the upland side of the house and one on the wetland side of the house.
Thank you, David. And thank you for the color coding, which makes it much easier for us.
Thank Jeff Blackwell. He did that.
Okay.
His crayons.
So, any questions from commissioners or members of the public? So, a motion to approve this minor mod. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal. Mark Beal, I believe, is no
Mark
longer
went to
with us.
dinner. Mark just went to dinner. He just texted me. He won't be back.
Okay. Well, I hope he's enjoying it. And
He's in New York City. It's got to be someplace open to eat. There isn't anywhere here to eat.
Will, yes, I see your hand up.
Just for the minutes taker, I just want to say Mark Beal out at 6:20 p.m.
No mention of the restaurant. Okay.
Yeah, just to me.
By roll call vote, Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye. Thank you, David.
Thank you all, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Happy Hogmanay, or whatever it's called, Hogmanay. The certificates of compliance. The Nantucket Conservation Foundation, Medui Creek. Will, are you taking this for?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'm not sure if anybody wants me to put anything up on screen for this, but this was for the Phragmites in Medui Creek. I'll share the map. But all of their annual monitoring reports have been submitted. I don't know if you guys have had the chance to read through all this, but everything looks great. I was going to recommend that we issue the COC. There's no relevant ongoing conditions. And that is it.
Great. So a motion to permit the certificate of compliance, to issue the certificate of compliance. And Seth?
No, excuse me, Mr. Chair. I have a question.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So within this certificate of request or certificate of compliance request, if you read it out how it's written, the Nantucket Conservation Foundation is requesting permission for ongoing management of the same methods permitted in this order. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily how we generally operate. That would essentially give them a indefinite permit to do this management with no need for monitoring or any other requirements. And although I'm certainly on board with invasive species management and I support it being done, if you actually look at the map of the populations, it appears, and I was hoping that an NCF representative would be here, but it appears as in their last map's boundary, the 2021 boundary, there's quite a large Phragmites patch still there, potentially even larger than when the project started. So I would think that I don't have an issue with approving the order or approving the certificate of compliance for the work that was done, but I don't think we should give a blanket permission for ongoing management without a new notice of intent. I think we should request a new notice of intent to see how they're going to deal with that continuing Phragmites issue there. And I think that certainly it's within the interest of the wetlands to continue that management, but we should receive a notice of intent for it. Thank you.
So, thank you, Seth. I think that's a really good point, and I'm glad you picked that up. And I absolutely would suggest a modification of the certificate so that we incorporate that into the certificate of compliance. Will, can you do that?
Yeah, sorry, I was just raising my hand to say that I think I interpreted what Seth is talking about differently, but I am in complete agreement looking at it now. The future management recommendations portion on page 8, I think. I think we can condition we can't necessarily write a new condition on a COC, but can we issue a certificate of compliance, but not allow future work without submission of an NOI?
No, I don't see why not.
Yeah.
In other words, they're combining several requests into one.
Yeah, I mean, sorry for interrupting. I mean, we're allowed to incorporate ongoing conditions into the certificate of compliance, right?
Yeah.
And so, even on page 1 in their cover sheet, they specifically say the foundation would like to request permission for ongoing management using the same methods permitted in this order for future years. We should, in my opinion, maybe other commissioners disagree. I think we should issue the certificate of compliance, but specifically with the condition that says future management under this order is not permitted. Please file a new notice of intent for new management. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Seth. And I agree with you. And as you say, there's no representative to make any case on this. And so unless I see any opinion to the contrary, I'd request that a motion is made accordingly, incorporating that into the certificate of compliance. So on that note, Seth, would you like to make the motion?
Yes, I would like to make that motion.
Thank you. And a second, please. Great. Thank you, Mike. So by roll call vote, Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelberg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. And the other certificate of compliance request is from Padir, 69.5 Cliff Road. And who is representing that? You are, Will? Okay, thank you.
Unless someone's here, but this one was for 69.5 Cliff Road. The work never started. They are asking for a 3-year extension. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. 69.5 Cliff Road. This was for a subsurface drainage plan. I had the next extension up on my screen. Let me share this. Excuse me. So we went out here to assess last week. Everything looks good. We have the original order of conditions with this permit. You can see that it's an older one. We had just condition 18. I would recommend approval with no ongoing conditions, obviously. That's it.
Great. Thank you. A motion to approve is excellent. Thank you, Mike. Seconded by, I think Joe just pipped you to the post there, Tim. So by roll call vote, Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So that brings us on to orders of conditions. And I believe the first one on our list is Creekside Nominee Trust, 156 Orange Street, with Mike Mazzarelli recused.
Thank you.
All right. So this was for our pool, spa, and invasive species treatment at 156 Orange Street. We have 18, 19, condition 20. Invasive species removal consisting of cutting and direct herbicide application shall be performed by a licensed applicator. 21, all exterior lighting shall be directed away from the resource area and in compliance with Chapter 102 of the Code of the Town of Nantucket. We have our pool conditions for the spa and then our relevant waiver. Any questions or comments on this one?
Seeing none, a motion to approve is drafted. Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Tim. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Opposed.
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 Joe Plandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye, with Seth Engelborg opposed and Mike Miserelli recused. So that brings us on to Noof and Metz at 35 Nantucket Road.
Sorry, guys, my computer's getting very sluggish this evening. So 35 Nantucket. This was for the secondary dwelling, pool, shed, removal of the existing garage. We have conditions 18 and 19, our exterior lighting condition, all of the pool conditions. There's no longer a waiver required for this one. That should be that.
Great. Thank you. Any comments? Motion to approve is drafted. Thank you, Mike. Seconded by Joe. By roll call vote, Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Miserelli.
Aye.
Joe Plandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So that brings us on to Nantucket Property Trust at 13 Hallowell Lane.
There's one wrong thing here. I'm going to apologize in advance if you can hear my dog loudly snoring in the background while I'm unmuted, but that's currently happening. So this was for the pedestrian path and walkway at 13 Hallowell. We have our conditions 18 and 19. If anybody is recommending anything else.
Do we have that DEP file number?
We do, yes. Thank you.
All right. A motion to approve is drafted. Thank you, Tim. Seconded by Joe. By roll call vote, Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Miserelli.
Aye.
Joe Plandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So that brings us on to 21 Sankaty Head Trust. 21 Sankaty Head Road.
All right, so the porch addition, reconfiguration of patio, landscaping updates. We had our conditions 18 and 19 on this one. anybody is recommending anything else.
Seeing a motion to approve is drafted, please. Thank you, Mike. Seconded by Joe. Thank you, Joe. By roll call vote, Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. That brings us on to 23, Sankaty Head Trust, 23 Sankaty Head Road.
This is remarkably similar to the last one with the addition of the upgrade of the existing septic system. Same thing, conditions 18 and 19. I think Seth has his hand raised.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you. I'd request that we add the lighting condition given the gazebo.
Good point.
All right. All lighting shall be in accordance with Chapter 102 of the Town of Nantucket. Anything in addition to that, or?
Oh. A motion to approve is amended. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Joe. By roll call vote, Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. That brings us on to extension of orders. And Elizabeth Pratt, Mayor, Continuing Trust at 43.5 Shell Street. And yes.
This was the one that I was jumping the gun on earlier. I had the wrong file open. So 43.5 Shell Street, there are some granite steps within the buffer zone to a coastal dune field. The work never started. They are requesting a 3-year extension, which would be until February 3rd, 2027.
Very well. A motion to approve an extension of orders. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Joe. By roll call vote, Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So that brings us on to approval of minutes. And for June the 1st, 2023 and June the 8th, 2023. And a motion to approve. Thank you, Joe. And do I see a second? Thank you, Mike. By roll call vote, we have Tim Brain. No, we don't actually. Tim wasn't there. Sorry, Tim. Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding with Tim Brain recused. So, and then monitoring reports. All right, so 102 Walwinet Road. Will?
Sure. So 102 Walwinet Road. This was a huge, not huge, but this was a sizable restoration project. It's still ongoing. The monitoring report is pretty extensive. Their recommended future activities, I think all the active management is done. They're going to be monitoring the plant communities, they're going to have follow-up treatments as a result of what sprouts back. I think, judging by this monitoring report, they've had a pretty good history of things like entering from the neighbor's property. They're getting fox grape over the fence and stuff like that, and they're doing a lot of hand cutting. But overall, I thought that this monitoring report was very extensive.
Thank you. It looks it. So it looks quite comprehensive. So,
I think Mike's got his hand raised.
Thank you for pointing that out. Sorry, Mike, I was otherwise engaged looking at
no worries. I just wanted to say that I found that report very simple to digest from a monitoring standpoint, and it was well presented. So I appreciate the people that put that together.
I seconded. Absolutely. 2 thumbs up.
Kind of a gold standard for a monitoring report in my book.
Yeah, very much so. So that brings us on to enforcement actions, potential enforcement actions. And before we begin, I'd like to address Linda's concerns. And the email that Spruce sent out was addressed to Jeff, Will, and the only other. And I was CC'd on it as the chair. So no one else on the commission was CC'd, Linda.
Mr. Chairman, I have a concern about that. If something's sent into the staff and it is public record and it should be disseminated to the entire board.
I'm not going to argue with you. So thank you for pointing that out. And Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with that, and I may be confusing the issue or just confusing myself, but there was the emails get fast and furious, but I did see some pictures of some choir logs that were destroyed, and I'm wondering if it in fact did get distributed by the office, or am I just lost?
No, I don't think it did.
Okay.
And again,
apologize for that.
No, not at all. And I wish it had been actually. So, Will, could you take note for in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to have a lame excuse or anything, but I honestly thought that another person was doing that.
Yeah, no, I understand. But it would be.
Absolutely. I'm in no disagreement at all.
It seems that the intent to distribute it was done correctly to me. I mean,
right.
I often, if I have something, then I'll send it to Jeff, Will, and CC the chairman, and
right.
The office will distribute as is.
Right. I think you're right there. And
my point is, Mr. Chairman, he shouldn't be sending it to anybody unless this goes to the staff, period.
Thank you, Linda. So Kind Flow Production has its hand up. Would you please identify yourself?
Yes, Chairman, it's me, Burton Ballkind.
Thanks.
And I'm just on my phone now because I had to go out and do something, and I'd like to apologize. I was also under the assumption that if I only put the chairman on, whoever it was, I always just put the chairman on these emails, assuming that it was going to get distributed, and I didn't mean to put anything else on Will. I'd be happy to next time put everyone's name on an email. I have everyone's access to everyone's email if that's easier. I just wanted to apologize for that. I wasn't trying to slight any of the board members at all, actually, on that. And so
I think probably it would be better if you just sent it directly to staff and asked them to.
Okay.
Will, you have your hand up and you agree?
Yeah, I just want to say, always send it to us. I think historically we do a really good job of getting that stuff out to the commission fast. I think the ball just got dropped, unfortunately, on that.
I always send it to the staff, regardless, yeah. But I sometimes CC other, but I will make sure I just do the staff and I won't CC any of the board members. Then that's the way you want it. That's fine.
Right. Thank you, Spruce. So we have uh, we have several. Well, Will, would you like to open this up regarding Tom Nevers, for instance, and also Baxter Road?
You want to start with Baxter Road?
Sure, because I see Meredith there, so we don't want to keep her.
Yeah, I conferred with Jeff a lot on this, and we had a meeting with the representatives of the property owner at 79. They were under a cease and desist because they have an open enforcement order with us now. I believe they were under a cease and desist when that damage took place, and now we're in discussions with them about initiating the cleanup work. I think Jeff's been talking to the contractors this week. So I know that cleanup of that situation is going to happen, but I don't know what point they are at in that process, or if it's happening next week or etc. But I know that the discussions are happening in regards to cleaning up the mess that is down there currently.
And Meredith, do you want to say anything at this juncture before we get into the fact that the geotubes have been exposed for at least 5 weeks without any work done?
Good evening, Chairman Golding, Meredith Moldenhauer on behalf of SVPF. So I'm here because I thought the conversation was about 79 Baxter. That was what was raised at the beginning of the hearing. And we are aware, I know that we've been working with Jeff and Will. There were emails back and forth between Dwight and the contractor. We have informed all of the homeowners that they need to locate separate sand, even though we did back on I think it was November 16th, provide a calculation of the sand that was to be used for the maintenance of the Quar terraces, but was separate from the geotubes. But despite that separate calculation, we have, I think out of an abundance of caution, determined that, the contractor should not use any of the sand that was allocated for the maintenance. And they are, I think as Will indicated, working with the contractor, and I have seen emails which have identified that they're trying to locate alternative sand in which they would communicate with Jeff and Will and take those next precautions, obviously confirm that the sand that they'd be using for the Quar terrace maintenance would be appropriate before starting that work, and obviously confirm that they are able to start that work before that is done. We did see images from the contractor on like December 28th of the damage. He did assess the different properties. As you know, there are multiple different homes along that area that are all part of that one permit, and each individual homeowner is coordinating with the contractor if their Quar terraces were damaged. Again, not all Quar terraces actually were impacted by that storm. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. So the photographs that Spruce, and unfortunately, I don't think, Will, that you can produce them quick enough to show, or do you want to show damage to a wide array of damage to the Quar rolls? And also, there is the question of whether you can produce the photograph showing the geotubes and this has been continuing for quite a while. And so I feel at this juncture that there should be, so that's Quar rolls in front of 79, right?
Yeah.
Which
and then
quite a bit of damage. Actually, yes, thank you. These are the Quar rolls that have been exposed for quite some time. And you can see where basically there's no sand going to the littoral system. You can see from the rack raid that there's starvation taking place. And I feel at this point, after 5 weeks of nothing being done, that we should issue an enforcement order on it. And so I don't know what my fellow commissioners might feel about that. And yes, Meredith. Well, actually, Meredith, excuse me. I'll defer to commissioners first before going to you, if I may. Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little hesitant of that action since, you know, there's no posted agenda item related to the geotubes in the enforcement actions. I know it's been requested of us to have that actually listed on agendas when we are taking official action. So I don't see an issue with scheduling that for a future meeting, but I wouldn't I believe, or I had thought that the discussion today was related to 79 Baxter Road. So official action on that is fine. I think discussion of the geotube installation is fine, but official action on that is not supported by me personally today. Thank you.
Well, I take your point, but in other business, 79 isn't mentioned either. And
so in that case, then I would not support taking official action on either project without a posted agenda.
And so Will,
79 has an open enforcement order.
Ah, okay. Well, I think unless Linda, you have anything to add, I think then we should put the enforcement order on SBPF on the next agenda item. So
I agree with that. It would be an open meeting law violation. So I agree with Seth.
Thank you, Linda. So, and then we have, sorry, Meredith, I beg your pardon. Do you have anything to add?
Not a problem. I just, since I'm here and out of it, trying to be as open and transparent as possible, not to make your meeting any longer. But we did email with Jeff Carlson. Sorry, Will, I don't think you were CC'd on the email, but with Jeff and Vince Murphy on December 24th, letting them know that we were contacting our contractor to have the geotubes covered by January 15th through the 18th, which would be within 30 days, which is what we discussed during our removal process. And so we are, proud to say that we are complying with that, and that was communicated to the Concom on December 24th. And obviously, as everyone indicated, this isn't really, I guess, on the agenda, but I want to, again, since I'm here, I would rather let everyone know what we're doing, and that was done very promptly, and we are working on that.
Well, thank you, Meredith. That certainly adds to our understanding of what is taking place. So, Spruce, do you have your hand up?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'd like to go back a little bit in time to when Meredith was talking about the sand was removed from the template and used for 79 Baxter Road. I asked the Natural Resource Department for the sand logs for that, and all they gave me was actual numbers of like the sand that was available, the sand that they took away, but they never had any like how many, because I watched it happen, and like there was a front end loader taking sand off the template and then moving it over to the core logs. And I being a contractor, know that you get caught up in your work, and if you're not counting buckets, I don't know how, and they didn't have any proof or any chain of custody of that information. So I think we're just relying on what they say was the amount of sand taken of that was available. And so I think it's really prudent that they don't take any more sand off, since they really haven't been able to prove. And my ask for the board, for the commission, would be that if you could somehow ascertain those numbers of the actual sand that they say they took off. Is there any log, or is there any numbers, or is it just what they thought they took after moving sand all day? That would be my first thing I would ask of the board in this. And then the second ask I would have would be in any further conditionings of core work being done on the core installation. One of the things that happened in this last storm, the storm of the 18th, the picture I took of this was of the cores on the 16th, right after they had those stop work order where they redid the whole core log. installation, and it was great. But when it got destroyed, 7 layers of core ended up on our beaches, all up and down, from Great Point down to Cotuh, Quignet. There's pieces of core everywhere. 2 Nantucket citizens, Rain Haberson and Blair Perkins, picked it up, and they filled a truck load up. I sent pictures of that in, and I would ask that if any further installations of the core, there's some component of being having a clean, at least figure out how they could remove some of that. And another thing I would ask the either staff or the commission to find out, and picking up that core off the beach, there was a nylon thread running through the coconut core. And that seems like if that's getting spread on the beaches, that's a real entanglement issue for animals. And that would be my other ask. So
thank you, Bruce.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, well, I thought there was supposed to be identifying markers on the core so that we could identify whose it was. And I certainly, having seen pictures of the mess, feel that it should be picked up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I was also going to ask, I'm wondering if that nylon thread is the identifier.
That I don't know. Jeff might know.
Right.
Seth has raised his hand. Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the thing I don't know is if that identifying condition made it into this order or not. I know it's been used widely in other orders with core installations on Nantucket, but this is an older installation. So I guess we'd have to check the order.
Right.
Typically, it's not a nylon thread. It's actually like a tag.
Right.
And I've seen other ones, pictures of other ones. It's a pretty identifiable, like I guess not indestructible, but damage resistant material that's easily noticeable. So I don't think it's that thread that is being mentioned. Thank you.
So, but before I recognize Mike and Deanne, it would seem to me that we certainly should make an emergency order to have the choir that is in front of the rolls that is all over the beach removed immediately. So, but Mike, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so just so I understand the identifier, because that was before my time, Seth indicated it was possibly done by a tag, which would then also mean that the tag has to survive the hit to be able to identify it. Is that how it's typically done with a tag affixed to it?
Yeah, metal tags.
Yes. Yeah, it's a metal tag that's been, zip tied on with like very heavy duty zip ties, and I think also sewn to the sheet. I mean, I've seen them on other projects survive catastrophic damage. So I'm not saying it will survive every single storm, but it can take a hit.
But sounds like a good idea, and I haven't heard of it before, so appreciate that.
Also helps if it fouls a propeller or something like that. That was brought up. Oh, must have been a decade ago. So I'm sort of surprised that these aren't marked, and so maybe we've dropped the ball here. Deanne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As probably one of the oldest people here, I do remember back to 2007 when there was a catastrophic failure under this permit of what was then called the banking and terracing project that contained a lot of treated timber that collapsed in a spring storm. And those pieces of timber, and also at that time, the bags consisted of jute, and they washed up all around the island. And there was great concern was raised. And at that time, SBPF came before the commission, and the commission permitted the revised Quar terraces, and part of the order of condition, as I recall, was a colored thread that would identify the Quar bags as coming from this installation. So this has been an ongoing problem, and it's very disturbing that it has happened again. And I would hope that the commission would take aggressive action in that the adverse impacts are affecting many parts of the island. In addition, Spruce's drone photographs are showing that the installation, I'm not a scientist, but it almost looks like it is performing as a coastal engineering structure because it's formed a promontory. But what it has done, it has precluded the public access seaward of the installation, which is a violation of one of the conditions of its order. So it's complicated, but the commission has, I think, having observed this for so many years now, really granted the permit holder and the property owner significant accommodation, and it's time to take action.
Thank you, Deanne. And you're referring specifically to 79 Baxter Road, the Quar rows in front of 79?
Yeah, well, Mr. Chair, it's complicated because the permit was issued to SBPF, and it was for, and I don't remember exactly, Meredith, maybe you know, it was for a very length. I mean, it might have gone all the way down to 55, I don't know, up to 119. And the permit was issued to SBPF. SBPF is the permit holder, but apparently at some point in the intervening years, each property owner was responsible for maintaining or not the installation in front of it. That's why we have this erratic maintenance and monitoring that's going on. And really the property owner at 79 appears to have been the most consistent property owner in maintaining the project. That's why this installation, even though it's part of one whole permit, seems to stand out from the others. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And thank you, Deanne, for your historical perspective. And as I've discussed with Jeff, for 2 years now, I have been unable to get around 79 when the tide is even halfway up. And so I really think it's time that as a commission, we start to deal with this issue. And Seth, and my knees aren't up to what I used to be able to clamber up. And now, last time, I basically gave up. So, yes, Seth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, we can't make any determinations of violations of order of conditions without seeing the order of conditions. So I'm sorry, Will, but I'm going to ask you to find that for us.
For 79, right?
Yeah, and I do know, I do know about what Deanne is talking about, that it is part of a larger installation that was applied for by SPPF. And that makes them, liable to maintain the order of conditions. I think they know that. I think that's why one of their representatives is here. Whether they decide to divvy up the maintenance between individual property owners or a collective is not relevant. Ultimately, whoever signed the permit needs to be held accountable, but they're here. So I know that they're listening to us. Thank you.
I should be able to get that. I'm just looking at loading screens.
Excuse me. I'm getting a cramp in my legs, which is why I'm suddenly disappearing off my screen here.
All right. If I may share my screen.
Will, point of, I guess, a question of order. Are we discussing this tonight? Because I think that there was a question of whether this was actually formally on the agenda, or are we going through this tonight?
Meredith, I think that's a good point. So why don't we put this on the agenda for the next meeting so that everybody can be prepared?
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Not at all. And let's move on to what's happening out at the Navy base.
Bid you all adieu. Have a good night.
Good night to you too. So we've got quite a few. Would you like to fill in what's going on at the Navy base and whether we should put that on the next one for an enforcement order as well? And
sure. So the Navy base obviously has, and this is Will for the record, the Navy base has obviously taken quite a hit. If anybody's been out there, Tom Nevers, the bluff has lost, I'd say roughly like 20 feet. Vince and Leah have the real numbers if you want to talk to them. But the DPW went out there earlier this week, basically to set up an emergency barrier so that a car can't drive right off the bluff because the road was dangerously close to the edge of the bluff now. After speaking with Charlie from the DPW, and then I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. There's also a ton of debris on the beach, which has been reported to a couple commissioners and as well as us. Potentially asbestos piping, all sorts of large concrete structures, which can't easily be picked up, but need to be dealt with. But anyway, the history here is that the DPW has a permit or they're looking to submit an NOI and they've got the permitting in the pipeline with Weston and Sampson for a procedural cleanup of that beach, kind of section to section, the beach, bluff, and bank. But we are considering placing an enforcement order on them that would give them the ability to go down there and take up stuff that's coming loose as it comes loose, get any material that the DPW can deal with on their own. And this would be in anticipation of a full submission of an NOI to complete the actual cleanup project. And Ian, if I'm missing anything, please.
Yeah, I don't think you are. The person who got in touch with me said that there'd been an asbestos pipe that had come out of the bluff and then had been covered over, by wave action, so that there was various stuff buried. I would recommend everybody go out and have a look. I mean, it's astonishing how much is littering the beach there, and I think we should have an enforcement order in place as soon as possible to, at the very least, cover the DPW's desire to remove what they can with our permission, so to speak. So,
and I just, I'm sorry, Ian. With that said, I'm not sure if we need to put this on the agenda in order to issue an enforcement, because it's a potential enforcement. And I know just in my tenure here, we've brought up potential enforcements and then issued the enforcement the next day, right, without them being on the agenda. So I don't know if we broke a rule in the past, or if that is actually acceptable, but.
So I think it's a matter of degree. And Seth, do you have an observation to make?
Yeah, I don't think any rules are broken, or I think that's acceptable to send or to start the enforcement process, which basically just, requires them to appear before the commission.
Mm-hmm.
I think having any substantive discussion on the merits of the enforcement without it being posted is different, but just sending a thing saying we're aware of this violation, you need to appear, that's fine.
Thank you. So let's put all of that in train, Will, for our next meeting, so that we, at this point, have at least 2 and maybe 3, depending on how we phrase the one for what's going on the bluff.
That's the tricky bit.
Okay. So unless anybody has any further observations, let's get on to reports. And Mark is not on for crack. And I beg your pardon, Tim, you're crack. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself there. Do you have any reports, sir?
Nothing really to report, no.
Okay. And so Mark is off for CPC.
Well, he told me to give the CPC one since I'm on CPC. And
okay, go for it, Linda.
Well, we're still in the throes of trying to figure out how to allocate funding. There's been a lot of disagreement, some problems with some of the members. And so we're still working on it, but I think we're meeting next Thursday to finalize it because all of these things have to be to the select board by the 17th of January. So that's where we are.
Okay, thank you. NP and EDC?
Yes, thank you. At our last meeting, or one of the last meetings, I mentioned that the NP and EDC is going through an independent process to potentially alter its membership. And I mentioned at the time that there were some discussions that there could be a potential future where the Conservation Commission was not represented. I know people on this commission felt strongly opposed to that. I communicated those concerns to the NP and EDC. And in the NP and EDC's latest draft of updated membership, the Concom is retained as a member. So those concerns are probably allayed. Nothing, again, is formalized. Any action needs to be through an update to the state legislation that created the NP and EDC, but it looks like that most possible futures would point to continued representation from the Conservation Commission on that NP and EDC.
Great. Well, thank you. And if I can use the phrase without any putative inference, thank you for lobbying on our behalf. So I'm very pleased that we're still involved. Linda, the harbor plan.
We've settled on a format which seemed to work very well. We're mostly through one section of concerns and things we wanted to add in one section, and we're going to finish that section on Monday and then head into the next section. So we finally figured out a format that's going to make it a lot easier for us to deal with the grid, which is like 16 pages long.
Good. And this poor Joe hanging out, shirt tails flapping on this one for the offshore wind work group. Nothing to report?
Nothing to report. Although I understand power is finally coming out of a few of those windmills that are out there.
Yeah, I go out there and look at them at least once a week. I love it. So, okay, so any commissioners' comments before we wrap
this
up?
Good meeting, Mr. Chairman, again. Very good meeting.
Thank you, Linda. Mike, do you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on the meeting minutes, in an effort to understand how they're coming forward at this point, those were ones in June, and I know we had a change of a minutes taker, but is that sort of going to be the regular time it takes to get meeting minutes, or do we think they're going to move a little faster? It gets hard to remember what you said back in June.
I hope so.
It's a great question.
Yes.
I know we have a huge backlog, and Elena is working on the backlog of minutes.
And that's not a slight to Elena at all.
Yeah, no, not at all. But I think potentially we could email her and devise a plan to keep the current ones going. And I'm trying to think how this could be accomplished so that she can still work on the backlog, but prioritize the current meetings or something like that. Maybe
yeah,
like
don't let my comments, make it difficult for her. I just was really just more of knowing what the cycle is going forward. If she has to catch up with the backlog and then we're normal, that's fine by me. I just wanted to see where we were at.
Right. And I can find out. I know she's not just working for our commission too. So she's I think she's got a few.
Well, yes, Joe.
We shouldn't lose sight of the point that Seth has made several times, and that is, what do we do with the land that we supposedly control or own or have some relationship to?
Well, I hate to say it, you're asking the wrong person because it seems to have fallen by the wayside. I know I should know more about it, but I'm at a loss as to where we actually are on this. Yes, Will.
I haven't forgot, but I think that we're going to need a special meeting or two for that. And I'm concerned that that may not happen for the next 2 months.
Okay, Joe.
With the other special meetings happening. I don't know if anybody agrees or not.
I agree that it's an issue to stay attuned to, but we certainly have some big fish to fry in the next coming weeks.
Right. And regarding your point about the minutes, basically, I can't remember what I said in June, and so I would much prefer that she tried to focus on last month's meetings rather than 6 months ago. And it's certainly not a criticism of her either.
Yeah.
But it would be a lot easier for me.
I can see if we can reprioritize somehow.
Yeah. All right. So on that note, who is going to propose that we thank you?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Tim.
Oh, don't all jump up at once.
No,
Right.
sorry.
Okay. So by roll call vote, Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Klandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Will. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a great night, everybody.